Hi everyone, Biggity Burp Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Seat Headrest album, Making a Door Less Open.
Hey! Over here! You mean like this? Like that?
Yeah, but keep going.
Like this?
Perfect. This is the latest full-length LP from singer, multi-instrumentalist, and songwriter Will Toledo's Seat Headrest. One of the most buzzed-about music acts to break off of the Bandcamp circuit, Seat has been lovingly devoted to the MATADOR label ever since the middle of the 2010s, and the music has gotten better and better. The massive increase in recording quality and fidelity shown on Teens of Style, the amazing transition from Teens of Style to Teens of Denial, one of the most ambitious and top-notch indie rock records of the past decade. Recently, we also had the triumphant redo of a once lo-fi fan favorite, Twin Fantasy, back in 2018, which for some reason in my memory feels like it just came out. I wasn't expecting to hear back from Will Toledo so soon, especially with such a peculiar single back in February, Can't Cool Me Down. It presented a pretty significant change of pace for Will's sound, and mind you, in concept, I'm not against Will going more electronic or INDIETRONIC. He certainly wouldn't be the first songwriter to do so, but generally I'm not really into how unrefined and skeletal the composition on this track is, nor how dry and unsculpted the sounds are. Regardless of the style of music Will is going for on this track, it still just sounds like a demo, which is an odd characterization to make of Will's music, I know, because usually his records have a bit of an amateurish and blemished flair, but to reference Teens of Denial, just because the recording on that record is a little distorted, a little rough around the edges, that doesn't mean that the performances and the instrumentals aren't dynamic. That the songs aren't sharp and focused, that the vocals aren't captivating, because they certainly are. However, I'm having a hard time paying those same compliments to the material on Will's new effort here. To take it back again to Can't Cool Me Down, while I think the song and hook at the core of this track are fine, there's very little about these bare and stark synthesizers and vocals that propels the songwriting. And there are similarly underwhelming songs elsewhere on the LP too. For one, There Must Be More Than Blood. My mind starts trailing off before we even get to the halfway point on this 7-minute track. And once again, it's not really anything against the song at the core of the track, but the gong, 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 gong synth lines along with the very rigid and stiff beat that backs most of the track, it really kind of puts a damper on the linear and somewhat epic build Will is trying to work into the song. This build is deflated by this rhythmic backbone that makes the whole thing just feel stagnant. Meanwhile, the style of a track like Martin is very much more in Seat Headrest's usual style. We have some spunky guitar chords, kind of punchy drum beats, a sweet power pop hook as well. Easily this track could have slipped into the track list of Teens of Style without anybody batting an eye, but is it one of my favorite Seat songs? Not necessarily. There's also Deadlines, which is another rock-oriented cut in the track list, but this one feels like Will playing a bit of musical cosplay, creating a song that's like a hybrid of The Strokes and a heavy, blaring alt-rock chorus. You see it's new, but not necessarily abnormal. In some respects, the instrumental on this one is a bit too regimented, but it's still one of the sharper and more well-groomed songs on the record, for sure, even if it's not the type of sound I seek in a Seat Headrest song. But the most out-of-character moment on the entire LP, hands down, goes to Hollywood. God, how did we end up here? What is this crummy, faux, edgy 2000s garage-centric cock rock with a garish chorus? Why? This sounds like the sort of thing Beck would have done back in his prime, but to, like, parody this, like with a really big funny nudge and a wink. That doesn't really seem to come through much on on this. I'm just waiting for, I don't know, the creative flair of the track or the interesting spin he puts on it to hit me, and it's just not. It just sounds like exactly the type of rock music I would just usually not want to listen to. There's just so much of this track that feels overkill and dumbed down. What's funny is this is not even the weirdest moment on the entire record. For one, we have the hymn remix, which features all of these revving and somewhat abrasive electronics that are met with these vocal chops of Will singing, just calling out very dramatically. The intro sounds like part of a Black Dice song, but then we get all of these pounding rhythms and guitar solos, cycling noises, and flashy synth lines. It's a weird hybrid of rock and organ and electronics. Pretty daring, actually, in terms of its build-up of different sounds and styles, and it reaches a pretty fantastic climax too. The progression, the pacing of the track is actually really engaging. More engaging than some of the more, I guess, conventional songs here. Really, I do like the track. It's a cool, unexpected turn, but there's nothing else really on this album that is reinforcing it. And that is pretty much the case for everything else here too. It's like every new song presents another hard left turn, hard right turn. It's a total crapshoot in terms of, are we going to get a good song, a bad song, a rock song, an electronic song, some weird bunch of sounds coalescing chaotically. There are other tracks here I would point out as highlights, like Weightlifter's, which I think is a really killer intro. Deadline's Thoughtful, the other Deadlines on the record, later on the album, I thought was another standout moment, despite it being another big change of pace for Will. Instrumentally here, it feels like he is giving a big nod to the synth wave genre, with all these driving beats and buzzing cinematic synth chords that are a bit of a throwback. He even works in this tinny little Crystal Castles-ish synth lead toward the midpoint of the track that's actually pretty sharp. The tone of the song is moody, but it is still incredibly catchy, and the final leg of the track presents a solid climax too. But again, despite this being a decent highlight, there isn't anything else on the record that reinforces this. It's really just almost randomized. It's like Will underwent some kind of challenge on this record where he had to write a different song of a different style that was chosen for him by some kind of AI or something. The lack of cohesion, direction, and inability to make all of these ideas coalesce in a meaningful way, I think is embodied in the closing track, Famous. Everything about this instrumental, from the beats to the effects to the synths, is just clashing to my ears, and Will's somewhat sung, somewhat spoken vocals aren't really bringing it all together either. In fact, the way he's saying things like, please let somebody care about this, please let somebody care about this, over these throbbing synthesizers makes me feel like he's trying to engage in some kind of meta commentary on this project and his music current day. Also, as he's repeating, change your mind, is he morphing, anamorphing into David Byrne himself right before our very ears on this song? Why? Yeah. Despite enjoying a good handful of songs on this record, it really is a mess. Not only are a lot of tracks here just not up to snuff when it comes to Will's usual quality level of songwriting and instrumentation, whether that be on the production side, the performance side, or the composition side, not really seeing what the sudden embrace of electronics and synths on this project brought to the table either, outside of maybe a few tracks. Will's going to have to get a little bit more ambitious and adventurous if he's going to pull this off. Because embarking on a bunch of experiments that go awry, I don't even think is making Ador's biggest issue. The most glaring problem on this record for me is that a lot of the songs and instrumentals just feel kind of half-baked and unrefined. So really for me it comes down to just there being a lot of untapped potential here. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 5 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Car Seat Headrest, forever.